It's a visceral image, but it's the reality for millions of people. It's that feeling of evaporation. You're working, the money comes in, and then it turns into mist.
And that is exactly where we are starting today. We are doing a deep dive into a guide called Financial Minimalism, a guide to living more with less.
Quite a title.
Hey everyone, welcome to Resilient Inspirations. We're here to share ideas, swap stories, and just see where the conversation takes us. Nothing fancy, just real talk with a spark of inspiration. Let's dive in. I'll hand it over to the crew.
I want you to picture a specific moment. Let's say it's 7 ISEO. The alarm is blaring.
Ugh, the worst time of day.
The worst. You roll over, one eye open, and you grab your phone. You're expecting, I don't know, a text from a friend, a funny meme.
Something good, hopefully.
But instead there's a notification sitting there on the lock screen. A banking alert.
Ah, yes. The modern morning heart attack.
Right. Maybe it says balance low, or maybe it's a credit card statement saying payment due, and you just get that specific sinking feeling in your stomach.
Oh, I know that feeling.
And because you just got paid like 3 days ago. You literally saw the money hit the account, and now you're doing this frantic mental math before you've even had coffee thinking, wait a second, where did it all go?
It's a visceral image, but it's the reality for millions of people. It's that feeling of evaporation. You're working, the money comes in, and then it turns into mist.
And that is exactly where we are starting today. We are doing a deep dive into a guide called Financial Minimalism, a guide to living more with less.
Quite a title.
It is. And I have to be honest with you, when I first saw that title, I flinched a little.
You flinched. Why?
Because of that word. Minimalism. It's such a loaded word,
Loaded.
I think a lot of our listeners, they hear financial minimalism and they immediately picture like a guy sitting in a bare, empty apartment.
Mattress on the floor.
Exactly. A mattress on the floor, eating lentils out of a wooden bowl and refusing to turn on the heat because it costs 12 cents an hour.
The whole monk in a cave aesthetic.
Yeah. It just sounds like deprivation. It sounds like punishment. So before we get into the tactics, we really have to clear this up. Is this guide telling us to just stop enjoying life? Is the goal to just hoard cash and be miserable?
No. And that is, without a doubt, the biggest misconception we need to dismantle right at the start.
Okay.
If you go into this thinking it's about suffering, you've already lost. The core philosophy here is something the source material calls grow by shrinking.
Grow by shrinking. Okay, that sounds like a riddle.
It does a little, but think about it like gardening. Yeah. If you have, say, a rose bush that's overgrown, it's wild, it's full of dead branches and weeds at the base.
Yeah.
It can't bloom properly.
Right, it's choked out.
It's exhausting all its energy just trying to sustain the dead weight.
Mm-hmm.
So when you prune it, you aren't killing the plant. You are cutting back all the noise so the energy can actually go to the flowers.
So in this analogy, the dead branches are what? The unused gym memberships?
Yeah.
The stress about debt?
All of it. The mindless spending, the physical clutter, the financial anxiety that keeps you up at night. The argument this guide makes is that by scaling back the things that don't actually bring you joy, the noise, you aren't making your life smaller.
You're making it bigger.
You're expanding the room for the things that matter. For your dreams, for freedom, for real stability.
Okay, I do like the gardening metaphor. It's a good visual. Yeah. But I am going to play the role of the cynic today.
Please do.
Because I know there's someone listening to this right now, probably on their commute, stuck in traffic, thinking, okay, sure, pruning sounds nice, but cutting out my $5 morning latte isn't going to buy me a house. It's just going to make me tired and grumpy.
And that is the classic latte factor debate. It always comes back to the coffee.
It always does.
And honestly, the cynic is partially right. From a pure math perspective, a coffee a day isn't going to make you a millionaire overnight.
Say.
But we aren't just looking at the math today. We have to look at the psychology. Because this guide argues that the coffee isn't the problem. The mindset behind the unconscious, unthinking $5 is the real problem.
So we're going to tackle the math, the psychology, and the actual how-to. I was looking through the source. We've got the Snowball Method, something called Capsule Finance, which I actually think is really cool.
Great concept.
And even a roadmap to FIRE. But let's go back to that person waking up to the scary bank notification. What is step one? How do we stop the bleeding?
Step one is what the book calls the reality check. Or, if you want to be more formal, the financial snapshot.
Which sounds absolutely terrifying. It sounds like a medical exam for your wallet where you just know the doctor is going to give you bad news.
It is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's precisely why most people avoid it. The guide really emphasizes that most of us run our financial lives on complete autopilot.
Tap to pay.
You tap your phone to pay, subscriptions renew silently in the background, and it all just blurs together into this vague fog of spending. The financial snapshot is the act of stopping the blur.
Ow.
You have to print out the last 3 months of your bank and credit card statements.
Printed, like on paper in 2026.
On physical paper. You need to see it, you need to hold it in your hands, and then you need to grab a highlighter.
There was a case study in the book that really illustrated why this physical act matters so much. It was about Lisa, a 32-year-old teacher.
Right. Lisa's the perfect example because she's not reckless. She wasn't out buying Ferraris or, flying on private jets.
She was just living.
She was just existing. But she had that exact feeling we talked about, that her salary was just evaporating. She kept telling herself the story that, I just don't have enough money to save.
It's a common story.
Very common. So she sits down, probably with a glass of wine to steel her nerves, like you said, and she highlights every single expense. And what did she find? Because she definitely didn't find a Ferrari.
No.
No. She found leaks. Little tiny leaks. Specifically, she found about $80 a month in absolute total waste.
What was it?
If a gym membership she hadn't swiped into for 6 months, it was a streaming service she signed up for to watch one show and then completely forgot to cancel. It was a couple of other small recurring charges for apps she didn't use.
Okay, I want to pause here because the skeptic in me, the person stuck in traffic, is saying, $80, that's it, big deal. In the grand scheme of things, $80 is a nice dinner for two. It's a tank of gas. Is finding $80 really going to change your life? It feels true.
I completely get that reaction. In the moment, $80 feels like a rounding error. It feels insignificant.
It does.
But let's go back to that grow by shrinking math. $80 a month is $960 a year.
Okay, that's nearly $1,000. That feels a bit more real.
Nearly $1,000. Now let's zoom out even further. If you take that $1,000 and just invest it in a basic, boring index fund with average market returns over 10 years, that isn't just $10,000. With the power of compounding, it's significantly more than that.
Wow.
But even if you don't invest it, just think about it this way. Imagine walking down the street and literally dropping a $1,000 bill out of your pocket every single year for no reason.
When you put it that way, it hurts. That's a plane ticket to Europe. That's a fully funded emergency fund starter kit right there.
Exactly. But the psychological aspect of finding that leak is even more important than the cash itself.
How so?
When Lisa was ignoring that $80 leak, she was implicitly telling herself that she didn't value her own labor, her own time. She was trading hours of her life hours she spent teaching kids, grading papers, working hard for absolutely nothing, for a service she wasn't using.
That's the kicker, isn't it? It's not about the money. It's about the respect for the time and energy it took to earn that money. So Lisa canceled those subscriptions, she saved that $960, and she put it straight into an emergency fund. It wasn't about deprivation, it was about stopping the waste.
And once you stop the bleeding, you have to face the next big hurdle, distinguishing needs from wants.
The great litmus test. Now, we learned this in kindergarten, right? Need equals food, want equals a new toy.
Simple enough.
But in 2026, the entire marketing world is incredibly good at disguising wants as needs.
They are masters of it. We rationalize everything.
I need this new phone because the camera is slightly better and I take pictures of my dog.
Exactly. I need this specific brand of jacket because it's more durable, even though you work in an office and never go hiking. The book provides a really practical tool for this. It's called the enhance question. Before you buy something, you have to ask yourself, how does this genuinely improve my life?
Okay, that's a good question.
But here's the harder, more important follow-up question. What do I lose if I don't buy it?
What do I lose if I don't buy it? Ooh, that's a tough one. Because usually, if you're being honest, the answer is, I lose the momentary dopamine hit of buying something shiny and new.
Precisely. If the answer is, it just looks nice, or I lose nothing but a moment of excitement, then it's a want. Pure and simple. The guide uses the example of Emily and John. Emily saved $1,200 a year just by doing a subscription audit, a classic needs versus wants exercise.
Okay.
But John is the really interesting one. He was that guy who upgraded his phone every single year.
The serial upgrader, we all know one.
We all know one. He was spending around $500 a year in upgrade fees and installment plan differences. So he stopped. He asked himself, does the new phone actually change my day-to-day life? Do I lose anything by keeping my perfectly good old one? And the answer was no. He saved that $500.
And again, $500 might not sound like a life-changing amount to the skeptic. But if you take Emily's $1,200 and you add John's $500, that's $1,700.
It's serious money.
That's almost $2,000 of pure waste just reclaimed from the ether.
It is. But we have to address why this is so hard. Why do we constantly confuse looking nice with adding value? The expert analysis in the book suggests we often spend to project an image or, more commonly, to self-soothe.
Retail therapy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Financial minimalism asks us to decouple our self-worth from our possessions, and that's a big ask.
It is, which brings us to goal setting. Because if you're just saving money to have piles of cash sitting in an account, that's boring. It's not motivating. You need a reason. The book talks about the SMART framework.
Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. But the context here is what makes it so powerful.
Right. So instead of a vague goal like, I want to save more money,
Which is basically a New Year's resolution that fails by February.
you get specific. You say, I'm going to save $500 every month to pay off my $6,000 credit card debt in exactly 12 months.
No, that is a mission. That's not a wish. That's a concrete plan.
And here's where the psychology of small wins comes into play. The source really emphasizes celebrating your first minimalist victory.
I love this part because usually financial advice is all about don't spend, don't spend, don't spend. It's all negative.
It's all about punishment, yeah. But the book says, hey, you worked hard, you found $300 in savings, go buy that $30 book you've been wanting.
It's about creating a positive dopamine loop. If the process is only painful, you will quit. It's human nature. But if you reward yourself modestly, of course, for good behavior, you reinforce the habit. It's about sustainability, not martyrdom.
Okay, so we've stopped the leaks, we've audited the wants versus the needs. But now we have to deal with the monster in the closet.
The past.
The past choices. Debt.
Chapter 2. Tactical debt destruction. This is where it gets real.
And the book pushes the snowball method pretty hard. And I have to admit, as someone who likes numbers, this part always frustrates me. I read this and I just want to scream at the book.
I can tell. You're a math person.
I am. Let's explain it first. The snowball method says you list all your debts from the smallest balance to the largest balance.
Right.
And you completely ignore the interest rates, you pay the minimums on everything, and you throw every extra penny you have at the smallest debt until it's gone.
Correct. That's the method.
So let's use a hypothetical. I have a $2,000 credit card bill at a nice low 5% interest rate, and then I have a $10,000 loan at a monstrous 25% interest. The snowball method tells me to pay off the $2,000 one first, just because it's smaller. That is mathematically insane. The $10,000 loan is a raging fire burning a hole in my pocket at 25% interest. If I ignore that to pay off some cheap debt, I am literally losing hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars. Why would the book possibly recommend this?
This is the eternal debate in personal finance, math versus psychology. And the book takes a very firm, very clear stance here. You are not a calculator. You are a human being.
Money is math.
Money is math, but debt is all about behavior. The whole argument for the snowball method is about momentum.
Go ahead.
If you attack that big $10,000 loan first, the smart way, you might chip away at it for a whole year and still owe $6,000. You see no finish line, you get discouraged, you lose steam, and eventually you quit and you go back to your old spending habits.
So it's about tricking your brain into staying motivated?
It's not tricking, it's gamification. It's working with your brain's reward system,
Yeah.
not against it. When you pay off that $2,000 card in, say, 2 months, you get a win, a literal dopamine hit.
You can cross something off the list.
You hold a statement in your hand that says $0. You feel powerful. You think, wow, I can actually do this.
And that feeling, that momentum, fuels you to tackle the next slightly bigger debt.
Exactly. There was a great case study, Anna. A 30-year-old marketer with a whole cocktail of debt. She had a small credit card of $3,000, a car loan of $6,000, and then this massive personal loan of $15,000.
That's a lot to face.
A huge amount. And she admitted that if she had tried to pay the big loan first, the mathematically smart way, she would have given up within months. The snowball kept her in the game. She cleared that $3,000 credit card in 6 months by finding an extra $500 a month. That victory gave her the fuel she needed to start attacking the car loan.
Okay, I will concede the point. A suboptimal plan that you actually finish is infinitely better than a perfect plan that you quit.
That's the entire philosophy.
So what about the people who aren't in that kind of crisis? The people who aren't drowning in debt but just feel messy, financially cluttered? The book suggests the 50-30-20 rule for them.
This is a fantastic framework for those skeptics who fear the cardboard box lifestyle of minimalism. It's all about balance.
Break it down.
It's simple. You take your after-tax income, 50% is for your maids. That's rent, utilities, groceries, transportation. 30% is for your wants. And 20% is for savings or extra debt payments.
See, I like this because it explicitly carves out a space for wants. It says, yes, you can and should spend 30% of your income on fun.
Exactly. It doesn't demand 100% austerity. It promotes balance.
Yeah.
The example they used was a guy named David. He earns $10,000 a month, a really good income, but he was just burning through it all.
Lifestyle creep.
Total lifestyle creep. By using this rule, he allocated $3,000 a month just to leisure. That is a lot of fun money. He can still go out, travel, enjoy his life. Right. But, crucially, he was also automatically locking away $2,000 for his savings. It keeps you from burning out on the whole process.
It puts guardrails on the fun, but it keeps the fun in your life, which is key. Now, we have to talk about the emergency fund, the safety net.
This is completely non-negotiable in the source material. You absolutely need a buffer between you and the chaos of life.
The book breaks it into two phases. Phase 1 is getting 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses saved up.
Just the basics, enough to survive.
And phase 2 is strengthening that, aiming for a solid $10,000 or $15,000.
And we saw this with the case studies of Claire and Tom. Claire survived a sudden job loss because she had that fund. Tom, who was a freelancer, survived a major client paying him 60 days late. It turned a catastrophe into an inconvenience.
But there's an expert insight here I want to highlight. The book says this isn't just about money. It is about mental simplification.
Mental simplification, what does that mean?
Think about it. When you have zero savings, you are living on a knife's edge. Every unexpected noise your car makes is a potential crisis.
Oh, yeah. The check engine light becomes the light of doom.
Right. Every rumor of layoffs at work is a full-blown panic attack. You are living in a state of chronic, high-alert anxiety.
It's exhausting.
But when you have $10,000 in the bank, a car repair is just an inconvenience, a problem to be solved. You write the check, you get it fixed, and you move on with your life. You have literally bought yourself peace of mind. That is a huge part of minimalism, minimizing stress.
That's a great way to put it. You're not just saving cash, you're saving your own sanity.
100%.
Let's move to chapter 3, because there is a concept here I've never heard applied to money before, and I find it fascinating. We all know about capsule wardrobes, right?
Sure. You buy like 10 high-quality versatile items, black jeans, a white t-shirt, a good coat, and you can mix and match them endlessly. You always look great, but you never have to waste energy thinking about what to wear.
Right. The whole point is it removes decision fatigue.
So the book introduces Capsule Finance. How does that work? Are we wearing our bank statements now?
Not quite. Capsule Finance is about minimizing the clutter of transactions in order to maximize the density of value.
Okay, density of value. I like that phrase. Unpack it for me.
Think about your bank statement from last month. If it looks like most people's, it is just littered with 50 or 60 tiny, forgettable charges.
A coffee here, a fast food burger there.
A random $10 gadget from Amazon, a convenience store snack. It goes on and on.
It's the death by 1,000 cuts model of budgeting.
Exactly. You might have spent, say, $500 on fun or eating out. But if I asked you to name 3 truly memorable, valuable things from that $500 of spending, you probably couldn't. It was low-density spending. It was just filler.
So what does Capsule Finance suggest instead?
It suggests consolidating that spending. Instead of 5 mediocre, forgettable takeout dinners that cost $20 each, you consciously decide, this week, I'm going to skip the takeout. And on Friday, I'm going to take my partner to that really incredible high-end restaurant we've always wanted to try, and we'll spend $100.
So you spend the exact same amount of money.
The exact same amount. But the experience is completely different. You replace 5 moments of meh with 1 moment of wow. You have fewer transactions to track on your statement. You have less guilt about where did all the money go because you know exactly where it went. It went to that amazing memory.
It's quality over quantity, but applied directly to your budget. It's like you're treating your spending like a curator at a museum. You only let the really good stuff in.
That's precisely. And for the skeptic out there who absolutely hates the idea of budgeting, this is actually easier. It is so much easier to track 4 or 5 big, meaningful purchases a month than it is to track 50 tiny, insignificant ones. It simplifies the administration of your life.
Speaking of administration and those little leaks,
Yeah.
let's talk about time. Because the book makes a pretty bold claim. Time is money.
This is where the deep dive gets really interesting, especially for the listener who always says they're too busy.
Right.
The calculation in this source is that the average person spends about 145 hours a month on non-essential digital activities.
145 hours a month? That's like a full-time job.
It is almost a second job. That's endless scrolling on social media, binge-watching shows, mobile gaming. Now, the book isn't saying you can't relax or have fun,
Of course.
but it argues that if you reclaim just 10 to 20 of those hours every month, you could very realistically generate some side hustle income.
So this is the argument for the person who says, I don't have time to budget, or I just don't earn enough to save.
Exactly. The book's point is, you don't lack time, you lack minimalist time management. The case study they use, a woman named Emma, she consciously cut 15 hours of TV a month from her schedule. She used that exact time to pick up some freelance writing work. She earned an extra $300 a month.
So she literally turned her Netflix time into $300.
And when you reframe it that way, watching that extra season of that show just cost you $300, it really changes your perspective on the value of your time.
That hurts. That hits deep. Okay, let's move to chapter 4, conscious consumption. This section is all about the traps that are set for us by the modern retail world.
And it is a minefield. The world is basically engineered to make you part with your money as easily as possible.
The first one is the trap of deals. We see a sign that says 30% off, and our rational brain it short circuits.
It triggers a sense of urgency and scarcity. But the source material highlights a newer and frankly more dangerous trap: installment culture. The whole buy now, pay later phenomenon.
Oh, this is absolutely everywhere now. 4 easy payments of just $19.99.
The source notes that this type of installment debt reached $100 billion in 2024. It is a massive, massive industry, and its entire purpose is to disconnect the pain of paying from the joy of buying. You get the item now, you feel the pain much, much later.
So what's the counter strategy? How do you fight that impulse?
It's surprisingly simple. The 24-hour pause rule. If you want to buy something non-essential, especially if you're tempted to put it on an installment plan, you must wait a full 24 hours.
Just sleep on it.
Just sleep on it. Lisa, from the first chapter, used this rule. She avoided buying a $300 TV on an installment plan just by waiting. She woke up the next morning and realized she didn't actually need another TV. And by doing that, she saved the $50 a month she would have been paying in interest and fees.
This leads to another one of my favorite concepts from the book, the boots theory.
Ah, yes. Named after the famous satirical theory about why it's so expensive to be poor.
Right. The idea of buying $100 leather boots that last 10 years versus buying $20 boots that fall apart every 6 months and end up costing you more.
The source calls this sustainable spending. It is a core tenet of minimalism, quality over quantity. And the environmental and financial impact of all the cheap goods we buy is just staggering. The source notes that $400 billion worth of goods are discarded annually in the U.S. alone due to poor quality.
That is just an unbelievable mountain of trash and wasted money.
So the minimalist approach is, buy it nice or buy it twice. Buy the $100 leather bag that will last a decade. Buy the durable coat. Sarah, the case study for this, she switched from fast fashion to buying high-quality secondhand items. She bought one durable coat for $150 instead of buying a new, cheap $30 one every single winter. She saved money long-term and stopped contributing to that landfill.
It's avoiding being penny wise and pound foolish, right? Which is so easy to do. But there's a new frontier for this kind of consumption, the digital world.
Digital consumption. This is where financial minimalism really starts to overlap with digital minimalism.
We're talking about the mindless scrolling on your phone that suddenly leads to you buying something.
The link is undeniable. Endless scrolling on Instagram or TikTok leads to impulse buying. The source estimates this costs the average person somewhere between $200 and $400 a year.
That's incredible.
You see an ad for a product you didn't even know existed 5 seconds ago, you click the link and you buy it. It's frictionless.
So the tactics here are pretty blunt then.
Very blunt. Uninstall the shopping apps from your phone. Set screen time limits. The goal is to add friction. You want to add a friction between the impulse and the final purchase. If you have to get up, go to your computer, log in, find your credit card, and type in all the numbers, you might just decide it's not worth the effort. If it's one click, you're doomed.
Okay, we've covered a lot of the defense, stopping the leaks, killing the debt, avoiding the traps. Now let's talk offense. Chapter 5, The Road to Freedom.
This is the exciting part. This is about shifting your mindset from just surviving month to month to actively shaping your future.
And the stat here is pretty scary. Only 40% of adults actually have a long-term financial plan.
Which means 60% of people are just winging it, hoping for the best.
Long-term planning in the minimalist sense is about breaking down those massive, scary goals into boring, manageable monthly targets.
Like buying a home, which feels impossible for so many people. Right. If you say to yourself, I need to save $40,000 for a down payment, that just sounds impossible. It's paralyzing. But if you break it down and say, I need to save $3,000 a year for about 10 or 12 years, well, that breaks down to just $250 a month.
$250, that's manageable. That's the $80 subscription audit plus skipping a few of those takeout dinners.
Exactly. It demystifies the dream. It makes it a math problem, not an impossible fantasy.
Now, the book makes an interesting distinction between the emergency fund and something it calls the freedom fund. I thought these were the same thing.
Not quite. They serve different purposes. The emergency fund is your fire extinguisher. It's for disasters only. The freedom fund is for opportunity.
Okay.
The book suggests a split for this fund. Maybe 70% of it is in a high-yield savings account, totally liquid for emergencies. But the other 30% is in low-risk investments, like bonds, or a conservative index fund.
So your safety net is actually growing on its own.
Yes. You're aiming for a modest yield of 3–5%. It's working for you in the background. It's not just sitting under the mattress, losing value to inflation every year.
And then we get to the holy grail of personal finance.
Fire!
Financial independence, retire early.
The book addresses this, but it keeps it very grounded in reality, which I appreciate.
It does. The math is actually quite simple. The goal is to save up 25 times your annual expenses.
So if I spend $40,000 a year to live, I need $1 million in investments.
Correct. And let's be really honest with the listener here. The hard reality, as the book calls it, is that this takes a long, long time. The book projects 10 to 20 years of saving 25 to 30% of your income.
This is not a get-rich-quick scheme by any means.
Not at all. But the example of Emma the nurse really shows that it's possible for a regular person. She consistently saved $600 a month. Through the sheer power of compounding, which really is the eighth wonder of the world, she is projected to hit $1.2 million in about 30 years.
$600 a month makes you a millionaire. Over 30 years, invested in the stock market with average returns. Yes, that is the magic of time and consistency.
And addressing the skeptic one more time, the person who hears that and says, that's great, but I can't possibly save $600 a month.
The source constantly emphasizes small steps, big gains, even $10 a week. If you invest just $10 a week, that's over $5,200 in a decade, not even counting the growth. You have to start somewhere. Any start is better than no start.
All right, we're coming into the home stretch. Chapter 6, Habits and Maintenance. Because anyone can go on a budget for a week. It's like a crash diet. But how do you make this a real sustainable lifestyle?
It's all about the sticky habits. The book outlines a very clear daily, weekly, and monthly rhythm to keep you on track.
Let's start with the daily habit, morning meditation.
I know. I can feel the skeptics rolling their eyes through the microphone. I thought this was a finance deep dive, not a wellness retreat.
I was about to say, are we chanting Om to our bank accounts now?
In a way, yes. The logic is actually very sound. Spending just 5 minutes to clear your mind and set your intention for the day reduces stress. And what is the primary emotional trigger for retail therapy?
Stress.
Stress. If you reduce the underlying stress, you reduce the urge to impulse buy something to make yourself feel better. It's about cutting the root of the problem, not just treating the symptom.
Okay, I buy that. A calm brain is a frugal brain. What about the weekly habit?
The weekly budget check. The book calls it the Sunday ritual.
How long does it take?
10 minutes, that's all. You sit down on Sunday evening, you look at your accounts, and you review the previous week. Did I stick to the plan? Where did I slip up? It prevents the ostrich effect.
The ostrich effect.
Or you bury your head in the sand for a whole month because you're afraid to look, and then you get completely shocked by the credit card bill when it arrives.
Yeah.
This keeps you engaged.
And the digital detox.
1 hour every day. No screens.
1 hour in 2026. That's a big ask for some people.
You can do it. And during that 1 hour, you are guaranteed to spend $0 online. It forcibly breaks the cycle of mindless scrolling and impulse buying.
And finally, the evening reflection.
Just 2 minutes before bed, reviewing what worked. It's about conscious living. Did I make good financial choices today? It's about being present in your own life.
The book then outlines a 30-day action plan to kickstart all of this. Week 1 is just the easy stuff, meditation and tracking. Week 2, you add the budget checks. Week 3, you try the digital detox. Week 4, you focus on planning. It ramps you up slowly.
It's designed specifically not to overwhelm you. It builds the muscle of financial minimalism slowly and sustainably.
So bringing this all together, we've gone from the absolute panic of the financial snapshot, through the psychological victory of the debt snowball, into the curated, high-value world of capsule finance, and finally to the long-term freedom of that millionaire nurse.
It is quite a journey when you lay it all out.
If we have to summarize the core mission here, it really is that phrase from the beginning, grow by shrinking.
Yes. It is the fundamental realization that all the clutter in your financial life, the debt, the forgotten subscriptions, the mindless junk you buy, is occupying the physical and mental space where your freedom should live.
You aren't cutting back to punish yourself.
No. You are clearing the runway so your real life, the life you actually want, can finally take off.
It's not about having less life. It's about having less stuff so you can have more life.
That's it. Beautifully put.
I want to leave the listener with the provocative closing thought from this deep dive.
This is a question for everyone to really sit with for a minute.
If you went home tonight and you printed out your bank statement from the last 30 days, you got out the highlighter and you looked at every single line, would that piece of paper reflect your true values? Would it show what you actually care about in this world? Or would it just be a record of your momentary impulses?
And following that, what is the one thing you are holding on to right now? That subscription, that habit, that expensive car payment that is actively costing you your freedom.
Something to think about before you click buy now. That's it for this deep dive into financial minimalism. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's chat. Big thanks to my friends for keeping the conversation flowing, and to you for hanging out with us. If you like this talk, don't forget to share it and hit follow so you won't miss the next one. Take care, stay inspired, and we'll catch up soon.